In the year 2148, humanity had finally breached the boundary of the solar system, establishing colonies in the far reaches of space. Life on Earth had grown dire as resources dwindled, forcing civilization to look skyward for salvation. The largest and most ambitious space project, Helios One, was launched, a massive city ship designed to seek out habitable worlds beyond the known frontier. Captain Alaric Hayes, a man of resilience and iron will, commanded this vessel, leading a crew of 5,000, each selected for their unparalleled expertise and unyielding determination. Helios One was a marvel, equipped with state-of-the-art technology, a self-sustaining ecosystem, and an artificial intelligence named Iris, programmed to navigate, assist, and maintain the ship's systems. The journey was long, punctuated by months of silence and the glow of distant stars. Alaric knew the dangers, knew the whispers of strange phenomena beyond their understanding. But the thirst for survival overpowered fear. The first encounter came unexpectedly. One moment the ship glided through the void, the next, it trembled violently as if struck by a phantom wave. Alaric leaped from his seat as sirens blared. Iris's voice, eerily calm, reported, "Unidentified gravitational anomaly detected. Hull integrity at 87%. Crew members scrambled through the corridors, shouts echoing through the ship. Lieutenant Yara Sinclair, head of security, rushed to the bridge, eyes narrowed and fists clenched. "Captain, we're being pulled toward something." "It's not on any charts," she said, her voice tense with urgency. The anomaly was a tear in space, a dark rift swirling with the hues of violet and obsidian, pulsating like a heartbeat. Before orders could be issued, Helios One was sucked into the maelstrom, silence giving way to an all-encompassing blackness. When the ship emerged, the view screens displayed an alien sky splattered with unfamiliar constellations and an ominous, jagged moon looming over them. Panic took hold of the crew, whispers of being lost in another dimension spreading like wildfire. Iris struggled to calculate their new coordinates. "We are outside charted space," she stated. The crew's collective heart sank. They had trained for every conceivable scenario but this. Days passed with tension so thick, it was palpable. The ship floated aimlessly while the engineers, led by a brilliant but temperamental scientist named Dr. Elias Kwan, tried to recalibrate their systems. Supplies were still stable, but morale deteriorated as the unknown stretched endlessly before them. Hope dimmed until an automated distress signal was picked up, a steady beep originating from a derelict ship half hidden in the shadow of the jagged moon. Alaric ordered a reconnaissance mission. The team, armed and wary, boarded the silent vessel. It was unlike any human construction, with corridors that shifted and pulsed, metal walls marked by strange, bioluminescent patterns. "Stay sharp," Yara commanded as they advanced. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, with an odor that stung their nostrils. Suddenly, a scream erupted from behind as Private Costa was dragged into the darkness, his cries cutting off abruptly. The remaining crew fired their weapons into the void, their beams revealing a creature, a slithering, multi-limbed being with eyes scattered like stars across its ebony skin. Bullets ricocheted off its armored body as it lunged again, scattering the crew in a frenzy. Alaric managed to signal for extraction, but not before the creature's sharp limbs sliced through two more of his crew. They barely made it back to Helios One, gasping for breath, terror etched into their faces. The creature did not follow. Instead, its silhouette lingered at the threshold of the alien ship, watching. On board, panic erupted into chaos. Dr. Kwan, eyes wild, proposed using the ship's quantum drive to attempt an escape, even at the risk of obliterating them. Alaric's voice boomed, silencing the room. "We're not tearing this ship apart based on desperation. We need to understand what we're facing." The following night, the creature made its move. It had clung to the hull, unseen, and breached the ship's interior. Alaric woke to the sound of alarms and distant gunfire. The corridors were drenched in a flickering red glow as he rushed out, blaster in hand. The creature was fast, tearing through bulkheads and evading capture with ease. Crew members screamed as it lashed out, limbs cracking like whips. Yara cornered it in the engine room, the last line of defense before it could reach the reactor. Her pulse raced as she faced it, weapons drawn. "Get out of there, Yara!" Alaric yelled through the comm, but she held her ground. The creature lunged, and a flash of light erupted as she fired. A direct hit. It shrieked and reeled back, wounded. But the damage to the ship's core was done. Sparks erupted, and Iris's voice echoed with grim finality. "Core destabilizing. Evacuation recommended." Dr. Kwan, eyes darting, yelled above the chaos. "If we can channel the quantum drive's power into the core, we might force the creature out and stabilize the ship." The risk was monumental. The ship could implode, taking them with it, or worse, be thrown into an even more desolate void. Alaric's jaw clenched. "Do it," he ordered. Crew members scrambled to carry out the task. The creature reappeared, more feral and desperate, sensing its impending doom. It tore through the ranks toward the reactor, a whirlwind of shrieks and gnashing limbs. Alaric and Yara stood as the last line, firing relentlessly. As the reactor surged with raw power, a blinding light consumed the room. The creature let out an unearthly wail as it was repelled and hurled out into the vacuum of space. The ship shuddered, groaned, but held. Iris announced, "Stabilization successful. Quantum signature returning to baseline." Exhausted, bloodied, and surrounded by the bodies of their fallen, the crew of Helios One gazed at the screens where the jagged moon now drifted, silent and lifeless. Alaric leaned against the wall, his breath shallow. They were scarred but alive, lost in a sky full of monsters and enigmas. Beyond the rift, new stars beckoned, cold and indifferent. Their journey was far from over. Survival was only the beginning. The galaxy, it seemed, was far more hostile than they had ever imagined. As Helios One stabilized and the immediate threat receded, a profound silence enveloped the crew. The hum of the engines resumed, but it was a hollow sound, a mechanical reassurance in a ship still haunted by the echoes of screams and the whispers of grief. Captain Alaric Hayes surveyed the bridge, his gaze moving from the cracked display screens to the weary, blood-streaked faces of his crew. Every breath he took felt like inhaling shards of glass, the weight of command pressed down harder than ever before. "We need to regroup," he said, voice hoarse but steady. "Dr. Kwan, status on the core?" The scientist, slumped over a console with dark circles under his eyes, straightened up. "Core is stable, but only just. The quantum drive's integrity is compromised. We can move, but jumping to another sector would be risky." Alaric nodded, the cold reality sinking in. Their options were limited. Remaining in this unknown region was a death sentence, but attempting a jump could mean obliteration. The crew's loyalty, hard-earned over years of training and mutual respect, shone through as they waited for his next command. Trust, however fragile, bound them in this moment. "Lieutenant Sinclair," Alaric turned to Yara, who was tending to a wounded officer, "start rotations for the crew to rest. We need everyone at their sharpest. We don't know what else might be out there." Yara met his eyes, exhaustion mirrored in her own, but she nodded. "Understood, Captain." For the next few hours, the ship operated in a tense state of alert. The survivors patched up breaches, reinforced weak points, and catalogued their losses. A somber roll call revealed that they had lost over 100 crew members in the attack. The med bay was overflowing with wounded, and Dr. Lena Arquette, the head medical officer, worked tirelessly, aided by an array of medical droids whose soft, artificial voices offered scant comfort. By the time the ship's cycle dimmed the lights for simulated night, Alaric found himself in the captain's quarters. The room was sparsely decorated, an intentional choice reflecting his focus on duty over comfort. A holographic display of Earth sat dormant on his desk, a relic of a home he hadn't seen in nearly a decade. His eyes lingered on it before a soft chime interrupted his reverie. "Iris, report." The AI's voice, composed yet subtly strained from the recent ordeal, answered. "Captain, Long-range scans indicate residual energy signatures similar to the anomaly that transported us here. They appear to be originating from an object in orbit around the jagged moon. Alaric's brow furrowed. A signal? From the same moon where we found that ship? Affirmative. The signatures are faint but consistent, Iris confirmed. A cold shiver ran down his spine. The moon, now more than ever, loomed as a mystery that needed answers. Every instinct screamed to avoid it, to put as much distance as possible between Helios One and whatever horrors it concealed. But answers were the currency of survival, and he couldn't ignore the possibility that the signal could lead them home, or, at the very least, provide the means to understand what they were up against. The next morning, Alaric summoned his senior officers to the strategy room. Holograms of the jagged moon and the derelict ship floated above the table, casting cold light across the faces of Yara, Dr. Kwan, and Chief Engineer Mara O'Connell. Dr. Kwan spoke first, pushing up his glasses. "Captain, if we investigate this signal, we need to be prepared for anything. Whatever technology powered that creature, it's beyond us. I recommend a small reconnaissance team with drones, minimal personnel." "I agree," Yara added, crossing her arms. "We can't risk another large-scale encounter. But if there's even a hint of data that can explain how to navigate out of here, it's worth the risk." Mara, normally composed, looked visibly uneasy. "We're playing with fire. The last time we approached that moon, we almost didn't make it back." Alaric raised a hand, silencing the debate. "We don't have the luxury of caution. Prepare a team. We leave in 2 hours." The team assembled in the hangar bay, outfitted in reinforced suits and armed with pulse rifles. Yara led the team, eyes sharp beneath her helmet. With them were 2 drones, equipped with sensors and video feeds that streamed directly to Helios One. The shuttle launch was smooth, but the closer they approached the moon, the more ominous it felt. Its surface was jagged and pitted, crisscrossed with deep canyons that emitted a soft, eerie glow. The signal strengthened as they descended, guiding them to a fissure that opened into darkness. "Deploying drones," Yara said, her voice steady. The drones zipped forward, beams of light illuminating the cavernous interior. The walls were covered in glyphs that seemed to shift when viewed directly, an effect that made one's head throb. At the center was a massive obelisk, black as space and inscribed with the same bioluminescent patterns they had seen on the derelict ship. "Captain, are you seeing this?" Yara's voice crackled over the comms. "Loud and clear," Alaric responded from the bridge. "Can you access it?" Yara approached cautiously. The air felt charged, as if the obelisk itself was alive. The closer she got, the more it hummed, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to vibrate in her bones. She reached out, fingers brushing the cold, alien surface. Instantly, a surge of energy lashed out, knocking her back. The drones flickered as their feeds stuttered, and for a moment, the entire team felt as though the universe had stopped breathing. Then the obelisk's glow intensified, casting projections into the air, a map of stars, routes interwoven with strange, pulsating paths. Dr. Kwan's eyes widened as he viewed the feed on the bridge. "That's a navigational chart, Captain. It might be a way home." But before hope could solidify, a guttural growl echoed through the cavern. The shadows shifted, and out stepped a figure clad in sleek, dark armor. Its eyes glowed an unearthly blue, and it moved with the confidence of a predator. A voice, deep and distorted, resonated within their helmets. "Trespassers, you bring death upon yourselves." Yara raised her rifle, fingers tight on the trigger. "Captain, we have company." The creature lunged, faster than human reflexes could follow. Shots rang out, blue energy bolts scattering across its armor with no visible effect. It retaliated with a blade that crackled with energy, slicing through a nearby crew member before anyone could react. Yara shouted orders, the remaining team members backing away as she engaged the enemy with calculated ferocity. On Helios One, Alaric clenched his fists, helpless as he watched the battle unfold through the shaky drone footage. Iris's voice was cold and unyielding. "Captain, we need to extract them now. Deploy emergency retrieval protocols," Alaric ordered, his heart racing. The shuttle's automated recall sequence activated, its engines flaring as it attempted to pull back to safety. The battle raged on, and just as it seemed the shuttle would escape, the armored figure raised a gauntlet hand, emitting a pulse that scrambled the ship's systems. Sparks erupted as panels shattered, the shuttle veering off course and crashing against the moon's surface, skidding to a halt near the obelisk. The comms went dead. Panic gripped the bridge as the screen fizzled out, static mocking their helplessness. "Can we re-establish connection?" Alaric barked at Iris. "Attempting to reconnect, Captain," Iris said, her tone betraying no emotion. Minutes passed, each one an eternity. Finally, a burst of static cleared, revealing Yara's bruised face. "We're down but alive. The obelisk, it's reacting. There's—" Her words cut off as a deep rumble echoed in the background. Back on the moon, Yara and the survivors struggled to their feet, surrounded by the eerie light of the obelisk. The figure in dark armor approached, its movements now slower, almost deliberate. It tilted its head as if assessing them, and then, without warning, reached out to the obelisk. The symbols shifted under its touch, and the room filled with a blinding, searing light. Alaric watched in horror as the entire projection from the drones went white. The searing light that filled the room reached an unbearable intensity, forcing the crew to shut their eyes and shield their faces. The hum of energy crescendoed into a deafening roar that reverberated through their bodies. When the noise subsided and the light began to fade, Yara dared to open her eyes, squinting through the afterglow. The obelisk's glow had dulled, but it now pulsed with a rhythmic, steady light, as if it were breathing. The armored figure stood before it, motionless. Then, with a fluid movement, it turned its head, eyes locking onto Yara's. A voice, now softer and almost human, echoed inside her helmet. "The key has been turned. You will not understand until it is too late." Suddenly, the figure melted away into the darkness, its form dissipating like smoke caught in a draft. The ground beneath them shuddered, cracked spider webbing from the base of the obelisk as the entire cavern seemed to shiver with life. The obelisk, no longer a silent sentinel, began projecting its map once more, but now the routes pulsed and shifted as if anticipating something imminent. "Captain, the obelisk's changed," Yara said, voice tight with adrenaline as she transmitted the footage back to Helios One. On the bridge, Alaric stared in awe at the display. Dr. Kwan was already analyzing the data, fingers flying over his console. "It's pointing somewhere, Captain. This isn't just a map, it's a guide. And it's set to lead us somewhere beyond the known galaxy." Before Alaric could respond, the bridge was jolted by a tremor. Lights flickered and alarms blared. Iris's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and urgent. "Energy signature from the moon is spiking. Captain, the anomaly that brought us here, it's reactivating." The obelisk had unleashed more than just a map. It had triggered a cosmic event. Yara's team scrambled back to the shuttle as the ground heaved beneath them. Cracks widened, revealing deep, glowing fissures that belched blue light. With a lurch, the obelisk emitted a final pulse, and the cavern began to collapse. "Yara, get out of there now!" Alaric's command cut through the comms. "We're on it!" Yara shouted as she shoved the last crew member into the shuttle. Engines roared to life, sputtering as the battered craft lifted off. The ground behind them buckled, collapsing into a chasm as the shuttle shot into the sky, narrowly avoiding the avalanche of rock. On Helios One, the crew erupted into cheers when the signal showed the shuttle's ascent. Alaric released a breath he didn't know he was holding. But the celebration was short-lived. The jagged moon began to disintegrate, massive chunks of rock drifting upward as if gravity itself had abandoned its duty. The anomaly, a swirling mass of dark energy, grew larger, its tendrils reaching out like searching fingers. Iris spoke, her tone devoid of comfort. "Anomaly is expanding. We must act now to avoid being caught in its gravitational field. Alaric's mind raced. Dr. Kwan's voice cut in, urgent and strained. The map, it's showing an escape route, but we have to initiate a quantum jump to follow it. Is it even safe? Yara asked, her voice crackling over the comm as the shuttle docked. Alaric's eyes met hers through the bridge's viewing screen, both understanding that safety was a luxury they no longer had. It's our only shot. Prepare the jump, he ordered. Mara O'Connell's hands were already moving over her console, sweat slicking her brow as she input the coordinates pulled from the obelisk's projection. Helios One hummed with raw energy as the quantum drive activated, building up a pulse that reverberated through the ship. The anomalies' tendrils drew closer, sparking with an otherworldly light. The bridge crew braced themselves, eyes wide as they watched the monstrous maw of the anomaly begin to consume the space around them. Jump sequence initiated, Mara called out, her voice shaking. Time seemed to freeze as the ship shuddered, reality itself warping and bending. The light of the anomaly flared, and then everything went dark. Seconds stretched into eternity before the ship emerged, hurtling into a realm bathed in soft, silvery light. The stars were unfamiliar, larger and brighter, scattered across a sky painted with hues of deep blues and radiant purples. The anomaly was gone, left behind in a dimension they could no longer see. Alaric slumped into his seat, exhaustion and relief crashing over him. Around him, the bridge crew exchanged glances, breaths coming in shaky gasps. Yara's voice, tight but alive, echoed over the comm, "We made it." Dr. Kwan's eyes were glued to the display, where the new map pulsed gently, guiding them deeper into the uncharted expanse. "Captain," he whispered, awestruck, "I think we've just crossed into the space beyond our galaxy." Silence fell over the crew as the realization sank in. They were lost in the sky, far from home, but not without hope. The obelisk had shown them a path that might lead to answers, to new worlds, or to dangers greater than any they had faced. But for now, they were alive. And that was enough. Alaric took a deep breath and straightened, eyes fixed on the expanse before them. "Set a course," he said, voice steady. "Let's see where this path takes us." And with that, Helios One surged forward, venturing into the unknown, ready to face whatever came next.